All right, you asked for it. I'm going to deliver. I'm going to talk about my thoughts on the Xiaomi 12S Ultra today. I don't have it. Xiaomi did not send this out to me. It's not a global launch phone. I might get it in a few months if they do a global launch, but right now it's limited to a Chinese international launch. So that means only the guys with like multi-million sub counts actually get this phone sent to them. So there will be other people that get them, I'm sure, and I think my buddy Tech Tablets is buying one so he can do some camera stuff. Definitely check out his channel when it gets here. But as far as it comes to this phone, a lot of people are praising this as being the best smartphone camera out on the market. They're saying it's better. It's kind of like the Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra killer when it comes to the camera is what people are saying. And I want to have some discussion about this because I think that a little bit too far with the cart in front of the horse on that one. I think that the S22 Ultra is still better across the board, and we'll talk about it here. But before we get into that, I do want to say if this is your first time stopping by the channel, please consider hitting the like and the subscribe button if you like the video. If you don't like the video, turn it off and leave and never watch me again. I'm fine with that. But if you like the experience, and stay here and make this one of your tech homes. So let's talk about the phones. This is the latest phone that seems to be on the hype train for being the best, the Samsung killer, the best Android phone, the most amazing camera out on the smartphone market. There is some truth to it. There is, in fact, some truth to it. But then there's some other things that really take it out of that #1 title, I think, and really make you scratch your head. Because I'm going to tell you a lot of stuff about this camera. 1-inch sensor. And for those of you who don't know, a 1-inch sensor, that's the size of the main sensor on the primary camera. What does that mean? Well, when you have a 1-inch sensor, it allows more light in, which means that you get better overall picture quality, and especially in lower light, less like low light photo capabilities as well. When you have a larger sensor, it allows more light to come in, and that's like basically the #1 principle when it comes to photography. You can have a camera that looks like complete doo-doo whenever you take it and take a low light shot, or you are inside, indoors, things like that. They'll come out grainy, they'll come out, the colors won't be good, they'll look more blurry, it'll be harder to get good focus on it, and the quality just won't be as good. If you've got two phones laying around your house and one's a year too older, go try and take 2 photos indoors in less than ideal lighting, maybe lower light situation, and then go outside and it's a nice sunny day. You will notice a huge difference. A lot of light outside can make a chump camera look like a champ camera in no time flat. So there are other things to worry about other than just the light and the sensor, but they're saying that this is the biggest sensor, I guess, in a smartphone right now, and we've seen other 1-inch smartphone sensors, i.e. the Sony Xperia Pro I or whatever the world is called. That one, it is a 1-inch sensor, but from what I know, it doesn't use the entire 1-inch sensor, which is just kind of a weird head-scratching thing. Sony makes a lot of weird decisions. But when it comes down to brass tacks, I've watched several videos on this phone, and I think the general consensus is that the primary camera does beat the Samsung camera in picture quality. But there are certain areas where it does fall off, and then where it starts getting a little questionable is when you move over to the ultra wide and you move to the telephoto, it doesn't quite keep up with Samsung. So if you want to look at a phone from a whole entire complete package, the Samsung I think is still a better deal, especially when it comes to the front-facing selfie camera, because from what I'm seeing, and also looking at the data and the images and looking at the specs, the cameras are not identical. Now, even though they're very similar, the Samsung selfie camera, I think, is probably still the best selfie camera in any smartphone on the market. You can challenge me on that one if you want, but it's pretty darn fantastic. And in addition to that, that's one of the big influences right now when it comes to what people want to do with their phones. Maybe 5 years ago, the big thing was what was behind your smartphone, but nowadays, what's more important is what's in front of your cell phone. That's when it comes into play for like TikTok and Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts. Everybody wants their face on the camera now. It wasn't like before where it was like, oh, let me take a good shot. You know, I'm going to go out to the bar this evening with my friends and I'll have some nice incandescent lighting. Let me get a picture out here. No, it's all about selfies. So whenever you want to make a camera, you want to say that it's going to be better than Samsung, it's going to be the king of photography, you really got to look at two things. You got to look at the front and the back camera, and you have to look at pictures and video quality, because here's the kicker. The Xiaomi 12S Ultra still shoots in 1080p footage on the front. Why? And I had this same point of contention when it came to the Sony Xperia 1 Mark III. Here we are with this fantastic, amazing, they put all this money into the camera, and then the selfie camera was terrible. Terrible. Well, I'm not saying this one's terrible. I haven't personally used it or taken photos with it, but when you want to make a camera that's not as good as the Samsung camera on this selfie, and then you're going to have a subpar resolution to record in, like 1080p, which I believe it's also capped at 30 frames per second, it really makes you wonder what people are doing. And I've had this criticism about Sony as well. They've largely shored up a lot of that, and thank goodness they got a new selfie camera, the Sony Xperia 1 Mark IV. But when it comes to the Xiaomi 12S Ultra, I think that's problematic. So when you combine the fact that the selfie camera is not as good, and then from what I'm hearing, the color science with this Leica partnership also isn't that great. So when it comes down to the color science with the Leica stuff and the partnership, and when it comes down to also, I was looking at some of the samples, and it seems like there's a little bit of lens flare in there that I'm not too happy about. It's not nearly as bad as the iPhone, but it certainly doesn't look as good as the S22 Ultra. So I think across the board, the S22 Ultra is still better. But here's the thing. Yes, the new Xiaomi phone has the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, so it's a slight step up. It's the mid-year release on the Snapdragon 8 Generation 1. Yeah, you can call that a win if you want. These phones are so stupid fast now when it comes to these processors, but the big thing is this one's supposed to help out with some of the heat. And from what I'm seeing, it seems like, especially when playing games, it doesn't throttle as bad. It has a better above average baseline, I think even better than the A15 chip in the Apple iPhone. So there is some good stuff here, good and some bad, but I think still we need to put an asterisk next to it and not necessarily jump on the bandwagon and say this is the best one ever. I like whenever we get reviewers that come into things with a little bit of caution. I really did like watching Mr. Who's the Boss video because he actually went into some of this stuff, some of the nuanced detail, and didn't get too wrapped around the axle on the primary camera itself. There's more to a phone than that, and here's some other stuff. If you want to look at them side by side, one, they're not even in the same market. This is not a global release phone. This is a Chinese phone. This is not the global launch. They might have one in like 3 months. That's typically what happens, and maybe I'll get one then if Xiaomi sends me one. I've been working with Xiaomi for a few years now, but here's what happens. They come out with the new phone, it'll be the China launch, and then they'll come out with the global release a few months later. So who's to say? I'll wait and see what happens there. I'm not buying one to import it. It still has MIUI. I don't think MIUI is as good as One UI, and you could go apples and oranges on that one. But the split decision here also comes down to support, because Xiaomi support, not so good when it comes to software updates and long-term support. And Samsung is much more committed. They're basically the #1 in Android right now when it comes to software updates, giving you 4 years of operating system updates and 5 years of security patches. Some other areas of note, when you look at the Xiaomi phone, 67-watt charging, which is good. The batteries are about on par. So the S22 Ultra, 5,000 milliamps, and the Xiaomi 12S Ultra, 4860, if I remember correctly, which is kind of odd to me because it's one of those things where some smartphone manufacturers seem to be rounding up. I've heard someone mention the other day there was like a 47 or 4800 milliamp battery and they rounded it up to 5,000. It might have been a Pixel phone. I can't remember. But either way, it's all intents and purposes about the same because none of the batteries come out exactly the same, just to the tolerances in making the batteries. So this kind of, I think, on par there about, but the Xiaomi does get 67-watt charging wired and then 50-watt wireless and then still 10-watt reverse wireless charging, which is a huge upgrade over the 4.5 watts you get on the Samsung. So even though the battery's about the same, and from what I've seen in reviews, look like they're both getting, at least according to Mr. Who's the Boss, about 6 hours of screen on time out in the sun, max settings, everything. I think that's pretty favorable for a flagship. That's about what I get with the S22 Ultra. So I think that's pretty decent, probably pretty on par there. We'll call it a draw. But again, the other important thing is connectivity. When it comes to the Chinese phone, it basically only has the international and Chinese bands. It doesn't have the US bands. So if you were to try and bring that over here or take it to other markets, it might not perform as favorably because it only has about half the compatibility when it comes to 4G and 5G, and the Samsung still has more bands in both departments. So you're not going to be missing out if you want to get an S22 Ultra. But also, I've talked about this a lot here lately. Samsung has had some ridiculous sales on their phones. Even right now, this 4th of July sale they had, and I've got a link in the description if you're curious after watching this video, they've had up to $1,000 trade-in credit towards the S22 Ultra if you trade in your S21 Ultra. And then once you go to the Note 20 Ultra, the Fold 3, they drop a little bit, but still they're giving a crazy amount of money to trade it in, to get it through them. And that's a pretty good deal, especially because they're also offering like $100 of Samsung credit too if you want to put it towards something else, like a high-speed charger, a case, some of those other things. So if you want to get the Xiaomi, it is a little cheaper. It looks like it comes in about €950, so that's about $999. So it's about $200 cheaper than the S22 Ultra if you look at the original MSRP, not what you can probably get it for elsewhere. And of course, you're not going to see this here in the US unless somebody decided to buy it and import it. More than likely, you won't get any 5G support. A lot of these phones that we've been getting from Xiaomi lately and Poco, I've been testing them out. Some of them have had 5G, which has been really surprising. Some of them, though, only 4G LTE, but still, that's okay. But you still kind of want the 5G, especially in 2022. So, a lot of different trade-offs here, and that's one of the great things you get. And it's funny, too, because they talk about the screen, and from what I was reading, the screen is actually from Samsung. So, until you can start making all your own components, basically, you got your own screens. Samsung is selling screens to Apple. They're selling screens to apparently Xiaomi. They're selling screens to everybody. Samsung is like the screen selling leader of the world. They put screens in pretty much everything now. So nice to see some of this stuff. Interesting. I always like new phones. I like to have new stuff that's out there. I think it's a very compelling phone. The camera on the back, that camera module is huge. It is a big, huge circle, very akin to the Honor Magic 4 Pro that I tested out here recently. But yeah, I just wanted to weigh on this. I had a lot of people that were asking me, am I going to cover it? Am I going to talk about it? What are my thoughts on it? I think it looks like it's the best phone that Xiaomi's ever made. It looks promising. I like that it's $200 less on the MSRP. There's still some questionable things. I really can't get over that 1080p camera on the front. Whenever it comes down to all the stuff people are doing now with TikTok, and TikTok is from China. TikTok's a Chinese app, and I know that some phones only let you do 1080p when you're uploading the video to that, but in a forward-looking environment, I think we're in a position now where I think every camera should pretty much have 4K. Unless you're getting a cheap $200, $300 phone, we don't really have an expectation you're going to have a 4K camera or a super high-quality selfie in that. But I think a lot of phones are starting to catch on, even looking at like the Samsung Galaxy A53. More emphasis on the screen, more emphasis on the selfie camera. Why? Because that's what people are using now. So until you can get a balanced camera environment like you get on the S22 Ultra, which is basically fantastic on the front and the back end, other than the shutter lag. And I gotta say, I was watching the videos, the shutter lag, the shutter speed on the Xiaomi 12S Ultra is just uncanny. And then the ability to focus as quickly as it can, taking some amazing shots that look really good, and then doing it super, super fast, then that's the best combination. It's pretty much kind of on par with Apple in that department. So Samsung still refuses to address their shutter lag, and hopefully one day they fix that, because that's one of the things that's really keeping them from being great. Because despite how good their camera is, when there's like an 1/8 of a second delay, when you press the shutter between what you see and what you get the blurry kid faces, you get the blurry dogs. When you try and take pictures of anything moving, you get the blurry plants because there's wind. Having a super fast shutter speed is super important. And I hope that Samsung learns that one day and finally fixes it, because it's still there in all their phones. So that's all on my comparison and my thoughts on these two phones. Again, sorry, I don't actually have the phone, but a lot of people have been asking me about it. So here's my 2 thoughts, and well, my 2 cents. It's actually a lot of thoughts, but 2 cents. Don't weigh this too heavily. Watch some other videos. Go watch the Mr. Who's the Boss video. It's a good one. Go watch the MKBHD one if you want to see. He really focuses on the camera quality and a lot of different nuanced detail there with the images that Mr. Who's the Boss don't. So those two contrast well. And of course, check out a few others. But overall, I think it looks like a good phone. It looks like the best Xiaomi phone ever. I still think that Samsung overall, especially if you're in the US market, is going to be a complete win in the total package. Now, there's a couple really good things that are a little bit higher on the benchmarks whenever it comes to the processor and the camera versus the S22 Ultra. But across the board, S22 Ultra still is a win for me. So that's all I've got. If you have any questions or comments, please go down to the comment section and I will get back with you. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like and the subscribe button and the little notification bell if you want updates when new videos come out. And as always, thanks for being here. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you guys next time.